All right, I'm Dave Lingerfeld. This is my cup of coffee. We'll be together all morning. It's non-negotiable. It's part of the requirement of me being here. So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, panelists. I did this last year, and the panel has doubled in size. So that means we did something right last year. So that's awesome. So if this goes really well, I've been told that I get to host the next presidential debate. So I'm pretty excited to really let Kamala and Donald have it. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not holding out hope, but they gave me a glimmer, so I'm looking forward to that. So let's go ahead and jump right in because you didn't come here to hear my bad jokes, okay? So we'll get going with our panelists here. So again, thank you for taking time out of your busy day. Hopefully you can parlay this into a day off. I know that's not likely in corporate America, but we do what we can. So with that, if we could, let's just start off by having you tell us kind of who you are, what you do, just a little bit about your job, and we'll start on this, and I've got another mic here, so I'll just have you guys pass those as we go. There you go.
Cool. Hello. Hi. My name is Parker Drake. Right now I'm working as a tutor here at JUCO, and I also work as a tutor at Olathe North. I do some private tutoring as well, and then I work for a concrete flooring company where I design some of their estimating software.
My name is Tristan Curtin. I work for DataBank. We work in the data center industry, so we're a nationwide company, but here locally in Johnson County we have 2 primary facilities, which is currently being expanded to 3. And so we work with hardware, facilities management, cooling, heating, that sort of thing.
My name is Corbin Albers. I'm an information security manager at Foley Equipment Company. They are a Caterpillar reseller, Caterpillar fixer. They sell generators. Pretty much anything runs on diesel or gas. They work on. Before that, I was a systems engineer for a number of different companies in the Kansas City area. Grew up in the Kansas City area. Worked here about 20 years. So yeah, I see a lot of different stuff in IT, and especially in this area. So yeah, excited to talk to you guys today.
Good morning. My name is Jason Reeves. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm starting up a business called MVP Gaming Center. It's going to be here in Johnson County. We're currently scouting out locations. And before that, I was in the United States Army, served on active duty for a time. Kansas City native, just excited to be here.
I'm assuming you want to use this for recording.
Yeah, I think they need some recording.
Yes, so.
But I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome. So my name is Matt Woods. I work with a company called Strategy. We have kind of 2 hats that we wear, lead generation and cybersecurity. So I work on both sides of the house, helping to create strategies for businesses for lead gen and cybersecurity, so growing the company and then protecting it. And then I hand it off to really smart people like the other people on this panel to actually execute the vision and the plans. So.
My name is Henry Ellebrocht. I work at NetSmart here in Overland Park. Well, I guess technically Leewood, but I'm from Missouri. I have no idea what that means. I graduated from Mizzou in 2022. NetSmart is my first job out of college. I'm a software engineer. I'm also a member of the NetSmart Ambassadors Program, and I am one of the Futures coordinators at NetSmart. The Futures program is our internship program. A lot of times people talk about NetSmart, they're like, what is a future? That means our internship program. I'm technically in the R&D department. I guess I do a lot of research, but I do more so development, managing like a large enterprise scale API.
Good morning. My name is Carson Cook. I work over here in Olathe at Iron Mountain. We're an asset lifecycle management firm, and what we do is we take clients' equipment like networking, computers, laptops, that sort of thing, and then find a way to remarket that old and used equipment and rev share that with our clients. And I've been there for about almost 2 years now, and then previously I also served in the United States Army for 6 years.
All right, thank you to our service people, appreciate that. Okay, so you got kind of a high level of what these fine individuals do. So there will be time for questions at the end. So if one of these individuals is working in a space where you think you see yourself, start thinking about what kind of questions you might have for these individuals. They'll be great resources for you. So next question, dearly beloved, sorry, wrong. That's something later. Okay, cool. How did you approach landing your first adult job? Is what I always told my mom. I got my first big boy job. So how did you approach landing your first job? Any tips on, networking, interviewing, internship experiences? Because got all these individuals out here looking to make that first leap. So we'll just start and go the opposite direction.
Yeah, actually, this is perfect that this landed with me because 2 years ago, I was sitting exactly where you're sitting. I graduated from JUCO, I attended one of these panels, and I got to hear a lot of great things from these panelists. And I actually ended up networking with a gentleman from Iron Mountain who kind of got me hooked up. So I will tell you that this is a great place to start networking, and you're just going to learn a lot of great things and meet a lot of great people.
Yeah, I thought I would have more time to think about this. So I did have an internship in college. I get asked all the time if I think internships are required. I don't. I think really what's most important, like you said, is networking. It's kind of overdrawn at this point, but it's more who you know, not what you know. It's like 50-50, in my opinion. I like to think of just how you sell yourself, how you present yourself. So every engineering company I applied for, they only accept computer science majors, but I was not a computer science major. So my diploma and my resume says I majored in IT, and that is true. But in interviews and in networking, I told everybody that I majored in software engineering. It's not a lie, because I took software engineering courses for 3.5 years. So it's just, I don't get to decide what's on my diploma. So I think it's really being cognizant of what the other person on the other side of the table wants, and being honest, but really knowing what your strengths are and playing into them helps a lot, would be my advice.
So just real quick before Matt goes, I want to expand on that just a little bit more, especially those of you, as you start looking for jobs that might be outside of this area. It's very important to be sure when you step into those, interviews that you can clearly articulate your degree path with your school, okay? So a lot of times people that recruit locally, they're very familiar with the programs at Johnson County, at KU, at UMKC. But if you start to branch out of the city, they might not be quite as familiar. So you've got to kind of be that walking billboard for your credentials. And just exactly what just got mentioned here, you've got to be able to speak to that and clearly articulate, yes, the program is called this, but here's where my skill set lies. So.
Yeah, so there's, I think, two things, kind of core principles. You got to know yourself. So know who you are, know your strengths, know how to display that self-awareness to the company that you're going to. And then the other thing is know the company. So actually research them, go onto their website, see what their visions are, see what their plans are, speak into those. A lot of people go into interviews and they think that they're the only one being interviewed. You're also interviewing that company. You want to make sure that they're a good fit for you. You want to make sure that the culture is good for you. But if you actually go in concerned about the goals and the visions and where that company is trying to get to, and present yourself as a person that can help them elevate, you are going to have a much better chance of earning that, because you're going to stick out. Interviews are a sales process. You are selling yourself to them to help them get to their goals and achievements, which means you have to start with that. Some great books that can help you is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni gives you great principles on how to present yourself. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. All of those are going to be great books to read to help move you into there. And then for me personally, a great book, another one was Napoleon Hill. He has Master Keys to Riches and Think and Grow Rich. But he talks about having a definiteness of purpose and then be willing to go the extra mile. So when he worked for Andrew Carnegie didn't put anybody on his leadership team that didn't display those two things. They needed to know who they were, and then they needed to be willing to go the extra mile. And so a lot of people, when we interview, we're trying to earn a salary. But if you can find the right place with the right people, you just need to get your foot in the door. And so in the book, he talks about the number 2 guy for General Electric. He wanted to work right next to Thomas Edison, but his first job with General Electric was in the mailroom, because he knew that if he could get there and if he could serve well, that he would elevate. So like for me, where I went and worked, I actually interviewed for a marketing position, didn't get the job. The owner of our company called me back, said I really liked the interview. Our marketing director decided I wanted to go a different direction. I knew, long story short of how I knew, but I knew that strategy was the place that I wanted to be. So when he called me back and said, I wanted to hire you, but you didn't get it, I made him a deal. I said, hey, I think your company's the place for me. That's the place where I can grow. You want me on your team, you just don't have a position. I know you're working 80 hours a week and that you're not getting to spend a lot of time with your family. I'll work for your team for $10 an hour for 30 days, and my only job will be to make your life easier. And at the end of 30 days, if your life is better and we think that this is a good fit, we can renegotiate my salary. Sometimes you just need to get your foot into the door to prove that you can be an asset to the company. And once you do that, then you can work up. But you got to know who you are. You got to know what the company needs, and you got to be able to speak to that. And if you do that, you'll be able to get almost any position that you want.
I don't know how to top that. That was amazing. A lot of really good advice. I'm gonna, as an entrepreneur currently, you wear a lot of hats, and I think it takes a lot of tenacity and stick-to-itiveness. You're told no a lot, and learning how to accept the no's and shoot for the yes is important. Continuing to strive, not giving up, know what your mission is, know what your values are, and aiming for that and not missing the mark, because people will constantly tell you no, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with no's, because eventually you're going to get a yes. So don't give up. Keep to it, and eventually you'll get that yes.
Yeah, I would say, for me, kind of thinking about my career and kind of how I got started, like a lot of people had mentioned on the panel here, it's really important just kind of getting your foot in the door. And a lot of times, especially if you just graduate, you have a degree, you want to just jump straight into like a mid to like senior level position sometimes. Like a lot of companies, especially if you don't have internship experience or any kind of other like actual like technical experience, especially in hard tech departments. If you find a company that you really like and you think you can have a future with, looking at starting at their help desk isn't bad. I know a lot of times help desks kind of have a stigma, but kind of when you're starting out in your career, it's a great way to kind of learn the IT processes for that particular company, because every company does things a little differently. You can use the exact same programs, equipment in one company, and it'll be a completely different process in another company. So I think that's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door. Like me personally, I graduated with a network degree, back in like 2009. It was fully Cisco certified, and then my first job was a help desk degree with a department with a company. And a lot of people would think of that as kind of a step backwards, but in 6 months, I was in their networking department. So people see that, they see your work ethic. It'll definitely help you get recognized. So yeah, gotta start somewhere and gotta have a good work ethic once you get the job.
So, way back in the day, at a high school, I was hired by a friend who happened to be hired by someone that was starting up a web hosting startup in Pennsylvania. So the only reason I got that job is because my buddy Drew got a job. We were both in the same Cisco Networking Academy program and all these things. So it wasn't that I wasn't unqualified, but I would have never known about that job, again, just before, not quite before the internet, but before Indeed or any other major social networking platform was online for that purpose, career builder and such things. So sometimes it's who you know, not necessarily what you know, just to get your foot in the door. I would encourage people, especially today, to use resources like the CSIT program workshops at JUCO or Indeed, Career Builder, whatever social networking platform that's a professional platform to be used. Other than that, sometimes being able to ask questions of your future employer is also equally as important as answering them. So I will go over this in the workshops, but you should be able to explain to your future employer how you hold value, because you want to know how much value they bring to you. And also it will show ownership in knowing who your opponent is across the table, right? And that you have some semblance of information about their company, you've done your research, and that's why you want to work for them.
I'm probably going to reiterate a lot. I think that networking is definitely huge. Knowing somebody and getting your foot in the door. I think a lot of times those go hand in hand. That was the case for me. The first position that I worked at was with Cerner, now owned by Oracle. But happened to know someone who worked there, and that kind of got my foot in the door to be able to have an interview. And then from there, everything just kind of played out. I would say another big thing, once again, kind of reiterating, but confidence is really big. Confidence in what you can do and knowing exactly kind of what you can do, not like over-promising of, oh, I can do the whole world, I can do everything, because they're going to know that you can't do everything, right? But if you're genuine and authentic about what your skill set really is and what you do bring to the team, then that's something that you definitely want to focus on, not necessarily on things that you could do like later on down the line. And the last thing that I would say is passion is really contagious. So if you are passionate about the place that you're going to work at, let them know that, because they will probably appreciate that a lot.
Fantastic. I want to reiterate a point that several of you touched on about, when you walk into that interview, walk in knowing everything you possibly can, not only about the company, but if you're lucky enough to know ahead of time who's going to be interviewing you, you guys have so much information available at your fingertips. And I'm very professionally saying, go stalk the person that's going to interview you, okay? So I too am a Cerner survivor and a help desk survivor. I did the same thing. I had a degree in computer science, and the only way I could get my foot in the door was on the help desk, and I said, okay, let's do it. And in less than 10 years, I was a director at the company. So it can certainly happen, but I can't top what Matt did, but when he was telling his story, it reminded me when I was getting ready to graduate with my degree. I had an interview with Cerner. They were coming to campus. And I called a week ahead of time, and I said, can you tell me the name of the person that will be interviewing me? So they said, yeah, it's so-and-so. He's also an alum of this school. So didn't have quite the power of the internet back then, so I went to the alumni relations department on campus, and I said, can you tell me what year this guy graduated? And can you tell me what he majored in? So from that, I was able to work backwards. He was a technical guy. I knew that at the time he would have been in college, he was learning COBOL. So when I walked into the interview, not only did I know everything about Cerner, I said, tell me how Cerner grew you so that you could be an effective programmer in object-oriented programming when you came from COBOL. And his jaw dropped, and he said, how the hell did you know all that? And I said, hey, I'm like a jealous ex-girlfriend. I can find anything out. And I ended up later working for the guy, and he said, what you said in that interview, it scared the hell out of me to not hire you. He said, because I didn't know what you were going to do if I turned you down. Well, you wouldn't have heard the end of me right away. I'm glad you took the easy path there, so it worked out very well. So, okay, next question for our panelists. What advice do you have for our students and job seekers to help broaden their job search and help them kind of stand out from everyone else competing?
Sure. Yeah, I think a really big thing, especially in IT, is just verbal communication. Being able to have a positive disposition, you're happy, you're excited, you're talking, you're not like mumbling and kind of like head down, because I'm sure some of you probably know this, but a lot of people in the IT and tech industry have a tendency to kind of do that. And so that's a really easy way, I think, to kind of separate yourself from the rest of the pack, is just by being that energetic, outgoing kind of person, because they're really not seeing that as much as you might think that they are.
Good. So, this is an interesting question because it varies. I will presume for the purposes of this explanation that you are all very young and very new. You have very little job experience. I know I'm prejudging you, but just follow along. Yes, so you're probably getting an entry-level position in all likelihood, right? As an employer, I expect you to have certain nuances, and I don't use them against you typically. I don't know if other panel members will agree on this, but I know who I'm dealing with when I'm hiring an entry-level position. I expect you to be somewhat articulate. I would expect you to be somewhat energetic. I would think that showing passion for the industry in which you are applying is very important. And it depends on the setting in which you are in, because if you're interviewing with me, you're probably interviewing with me and Bob, right? And me and Bob are going to be talking to you one-on-one, as opposed to maybe a more corporate level job where you might be speaking in front of a whole panel of people. while the verbal communication is important, the physical communication is also important. You need to be able to look at people and scan the room, right? I know I'm being recorded, right? I'm trying very hard not to look at the camera. But I'm looking at each of you individually to make sure that I am making eye contact and that you all feel that I'm speaking to you as a whole, right? That is very important. So when you're talking to someone, especially if you're interviewing with me one-on-one, I'm gonna be writing a lot. So you're gonna be talking to my second chair, Bob, right? It's not that I'm ignoring you, and I will look up, but I wanna make sure that when I get out of that interview room, I'm gonna ask Bob, what do you think? He's gonna wanna know that you made eye contact. He knows what I want, right? So those interpersonal skills that seem very minor, that are very physical, are also important.
One thing I would say, kind of, touching back on that, on the physical and, how you present and kind of how you talk, you probably want some practice. I know there's a big trend in directors during the COVID era. Everything was like Zoom interviews. In-person interviews have definitely come back in full force. I know that took people a little back. It's kind of funny, some of the interviews I even did, like 6 months ago for people. We had people back out of the interview when we told them after the phone screen they'd have to come on site. So kind of be prepared for that. Another thing you can do to kind of stand out, definitely be open to at least a hybrid work schedule. I know a lot of times people kind of in IT, they kind of the dream of, full work from home. I can be in my home office every day. That is definitely going away, sadly. Hybrid, and a lot of companies are going to full on site, especially if you're interviewing for entry-level positions. A lot of times, sometimes those spots exist because the more senior engineers or other people in the group have kind of refused to come back from home. And then so they opened up spots specifically for hybrid or having people on site. That might spell an issue for the people later on, but yeah, just be open to hybrid and in-person interviews and get some practice with that, talking to people kind of one-on-one, because they will be in-person interviews.
I'm going to go a totally different direction. I think to stand out in the crowd, you should have community service. It doesn't have to necessarily be military. It can be faith-based. It can be with a city organization. You can be a soccer coach for young ladies who play soccer. There are a variety of things you can do outside of a work schedule, outside of your class schedule, to differentiate yourself, to show that you have a buy-in to the community, to show that you have a buy-in to somebody outside of yourself. Because if I'm looking at you or somebody's looking at you and all you care about is that paycheck, regardless of whatever passion you have, there's a lot of people that fit that mold. But if you buy into the community where you're going to be living, wherever that is, and if you're looking outside of your community where you're hiring a job, what have you done in the past? What community service, what community engagement or involvement, what organizations are you a part of to show that you've bought in?
You could be a panelist in the CSIT work.
That's true. Yeah, I'm going to double down on what Jason said. I think a great way to go and get experience is going and serving nonprofits. There are so many amazing nonprofits, amazing causes who need IT skills. Their service right now is being limited because they don't know how to do simple things with networking, with databases. There's software that could get developed that could, help advance their nonprofit years down the road. And if you're willing to go low and serve, you will earn the right to lead. Often, when it comes to getting these good jobs and getting into these places of leadership, we see really poor people in those positions because they didn't learn how to serve first. So you earn the right to leadership by service. And so if you are willing to go and do that and go serve a cause, go serve a nonprofit while you're looking for a career, it will open up so many doors for you guys. And then I think, again, what's going to separate you is knowing who you are. Like, I know that seems weird, but so many people cannot answer the question, who are you? They don't know who they are. They're going out and they're trying to get a job, to get a paycheck, to kind of serve a cog or whatever, but actually knowing who you are and being self-aware and taking the time to do the hard yards to be able to answer that question and articulate it in an interview, it will make you stand out. And if you serve then to get into there, man, you are going to be gold. You're going to have people fighting to bring you onto their team if they see that. And so I would say, know who you are, go and serve, and you'll be really good.
There's so much I could say about this question. How many of you are specifically interested in like programming, coding? Okay, a few of you. Okay, that's good So I'll adjust my advice for that. Again, a lot of it is about selling yourself. Like I mentioned a bit in the previous previous question. I have a coworker, and on his resume and in his interviews, when the topic of his experience came up, he would say that he managed a team of 9 people on a small group project towards a defined goal. And that was his Dungeons and Dragons group. And obviously he's my coworker, so he got the job. So I do think it's, again, don't lie, but it is about, like you said, knowing who you are and how to sell yourself. And if you are applying for like programming jobs, coding in general, I'm sure that we all know like some of the YouTube influencers like Fireship, all those people online who like try to teach you coding, and they're great resources, but don't fall in the LEET code trap or the code JoJo trap, or you are constantly studying DSAs, which is data structures and algorithms. Because, for example, I went to Mizzou and I learned C#.NET and ASP.NET web development. I got hired at NetSmart, and you don't get to choose what language you use, typically. You don't get to choose what team you're on. I walked in my first day and they said, you're coding in Java. Never written a line of Java in my life, and now I am a full stack Java developer. So it's about being honest with what you know and what you don't know, and really knowing the fundamentals more than knowing like specific things. I have never once been asked to write bubble sort from scratch or to do a fizz buzz or anything. But I get asked all the time the fundamentals of object-oriented programming, the fundamentals of, okay, well, we have this legacy system written in like jQuery or JavaScript. How do we get it into like Java and Angular? How do we get it into a Spring Boot application? A lot of those are probably just jargon words you don't know, and that's okay. I encourage you to research some of those because a lot of those are industry standard terms. But don't fall down the trap of knowing too many specifics. I think being a jack of all trades is better than being like a master of one, especially because you're on LeetCode, you're level like 30,000 or whatever in Python. Well, now you're interviewing for a position in Java. Like, so that didn't help you at all. That's what I mean, like really focus on the fundamentals and like be honest with what you know and what you don't know. My friend had so much more experience with D&D than he did with coding, but he twisted it. He said that he learned how to be an effective communicator, and he learned how to be a leader because he was the DM for his D&D group for like 4 years. And now we're coworkers. So, I mean, it's all, again, like be honest about what you know and what you don't know, and have a willingness to learn. If I walked in on my first day and I said, hey, by the way, I've never coded Java, I'm out, like that would be crazy. That would be crazy. But I said, hey boss, I've never done this before, could you lend me a little grace? And he was like, oh, absolutely, sorry, we didn't know that you've never done this before. And he literally sat with me, and Julia, she's sitting back there, they sat with me for like my first month and taught me the language. And I don't think that's atypical. I think a lot of people in the industry at any company would do that. But I think a lot of applicants and entry-level people have this thing of like, I can't let them know that I don't know a lot. But like you said, like they know that you don't know a lot, especially if you're entry-level, early career. So just be honest, as I guess the summation of all that.
Yeah, so I think what Matt said rings true. Definitely know what motivates you and what drives you to do what you do. Because if you don't know that, there's no reason to go forth. Like, you don't know what you're doing, right? So figure out the why behind where you want to be, and then go and figure out how to adapt to that. So along with that too is be adaptable. So at your current level right now, do not ever close yourself off to any opportunity that's given to you, because you have no idea what that opportunity could lead to. So for example, if you're a coder, right? If somebody offers you a help desk position, consider it. Don't immediately shut it out, because that could lead to something very great. And then also too, if you do end up securing like a physical interview, one of the best pieces of advice that I can give you is be on time. Because it doesn't matter what you know, if you are 20 minutes, 30 minutes late and you have your interviewers just sitting in the room waiting on you, that automatically leaves a sour taste in their mouth, and that sets a whole terrible precedent for that interview.
I did not bait you to say that, but I want to tell you a long time ago, I denied hiring somebody because they showed up 5 minutes late to the interview. And on paper, this person was dynamite. And when I said absolutely not, HR came back and said, I don't understand why you turned away this candidate. On paper, they're amazing. And I said, the candidate was 5 minutes late to the interview. And they said, okay. And I said, no, you don't understand. I said, this is one of the most important things, and they could not get here on time. So what's going to happen when I hire them, and 2 weeks later they come strolling in 30 minutes late? That it's all about that behavior. So you guys feel free to disagree with me here, but when you have that first interview, drive the route ahead of time. Know how to get there ahead of time. There might be construction. Plan for a ton of extra time. Another candidate I turned away, after I interviewed somebody in corporate, there was always two people I would talk to after the interview was over. I would talk to the admin at the front desk, and I would also talk to the security guard at the security gate. And I would say, how were they? Okay? Same thing. Had a dynamite interview with a guy. Went to the admin. Hey, how was John? He was completely rude. He came up to the desk. He was talking on the phone to somebody else about his fantasy football. He just held the phone down and said, yes, sweetheart, I'm here for an interview. Went and sat down. It's like, okay, strike one. Went to the security gate, and I said, hey, how was this guy when he showed up? Oh, he was completely awful. He was on the phone. He wouldn't give me, the information I asked for. He was rude. Okay, you're done. Okay, I'm not doing that. So one other quick point that you guys made on community service that I want to kind of up the ante here for you guys. People shy away from this because they kind of have imposter syndrome and they question their abilities. Don't do that, okay? Let me give you a great example. My daughter plays lacrosse, and when she started playing lacrosse, she joked, and I was serious, I couldn't even spell lacrosse. But all of a sudden, the president of the lacrosse league came to me and said, we're migrating to a new system, and I don't know how to do it, and I don't know who to have us help. Can you help us find a consultant to do it, but we don't have a lot of money. We're a nonprofit. And I said, well, why don't I do it for you? And he said, okay, great. So I migrated the system to the new system, configured it, got it all set up. To their liking, the league was perfectly happy, didn't charge them a dime for it. And the next time I was at a lacrosse event, he introduced me to the other board members and said, this dude's kind of like Bill Gates. I'm the farthest thing from it, and especially if you look at my checking account, I'm nowhere near Bill Gates. But the point I'm making is not to make you think I'm awesome. I'm not. My point is, it doesn't take a lot of know-how and knowledge for, I'll generalize, the common folk to be impressed with what you can do. Okay? So do not sell yourself short. And even if you can't help them with everything, help out with what you can. Okay? Sometimes it's as simple as making a PowerPoint. Okay, setting up a mailbox. There's a lot you can do. So, okay, back to our panelists. When we think about the rapidly changing technical landscape, obviously everyone up here embraces change, because if not, you all would have majored in history, right? I always make fun of the history professors and say, maybe I should have done that. I could just talk about World War II every day. Hasn't changed, okay? How do you people stay current in this evolving workforce? Because I'm guessing a lot of you that are mid-career, the stuff you're doing now was not what you learned in college. So how do you stay current? We'll start down here.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the best things to do in order to stay current is to research the market that you're in. So like for me, I'm working at a tech firm, and when I started, I had no idea what any of the acronyms meant because I wasn't geared and ready to be in that environment. I didn't expect it. I took a chance and I ended up there. So learning everything that you can about where you're going is definitely intuitive for you to do because it'll help you kind of like network with other people who also know these terms, right? So that's definitely the biggest piece, is to know where you're at. Just always learn, and again, stay adaptable. Never become stagnant, because when you're stagnant, you will never find those better opportunities for yourself. So
This is another, I could say so much about, I could talk all day about this. It's so interesting. It's so dependent on where you work and like what industry you're in. So in the healthcare industry, It just depends. It all goes back to knowing the fundamentals. For instance, a lot of our mission critical systems run on literal spinning disks in like a data center down the street. And some of them are like next gen, like technology frameworks that exist in the cloud. And but like half of them were technologies that were invented before I was born. So it just like, parts of the industry move fast and parts don't. So it just goes back to knowing the fundamentals. For example, we are in the midst of a huge data migration for our data store. It's a really big deal. Patient information, personally identifiable information, HIPAA compliant, all blah, 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 the whole thing. We're moving from a really antiquated software to a more modern software. And the querying language for this database, this data store, is entirely different. Like the syntax itself is different, but the concepts are the same. We still need good data integrity. We still need I don't know how specific I should get, but I'm just saying it's all about knowing the fundamentals, especially in a changing industry, because the technology and the details will change constantly. But a database is going to be a database is going to be a database. OOP is always going to be OOP. It doesn't matter if you're using Go, Rust, Java. I'm sorry if I'm getting too technical. It's just what my position is. But just know the fundamentals, I would say. But also, it's okay to resist change. I think if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's partly why we're on, legacy technology still, because it does work so well. I think some engineers specifically sometimes get back themselves into a corner, constantly, wanting to innovate, when, again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, would be kind of my advice.
Yeah, I mean, things are changing rapidly. The thing is, you have to maintain kind of that learner's spirit. You're always learning. I know we graduate and think, oh, we've made it. No, we just learned how to learn. We were given the processes, the systems, the same habits that you guys have now as you're going through school and learning. Don't stop those habits once you get out of class. You need to block aside time every week to be learning. You need to find those places that are producing the content, and you need to be consuming it. If you have a super busy schedule and you can't figure it out, you have drive time. Let your car be a university on wheels. Find podcasts, find people that are doing the things you want to do, that are at the places you want to be. Subscribe to the podcasts, follow their articles. When you're in your car, put a podcast on. I know that Taylor Swift has really great songs, but she does not put any money into your bank account. She also does not help advance your career. But listening to the right podcast can literally change your life. It can give you the information that you need. And so if you create those learning habits and you don't stop them, and you just keep consuming, you will stay where you need to be. The other thing we've talked about, networking. This is one of the biggest benefits of networking. You cannot learn everything on your own. If you try and be a maverick and a solo person, you are going to fail. There's an African proverb that I live by. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. You got to find a tribe of people that are going in the same direction as you, and you got to link arms with them. If you're in that place and they're advancing, they will help you learn. And so finding those communities, finding those places to network, setting up those learning habits, they will keep you where you need to be. But make sure that you're learning from people whose life is what you want. So if you look at someone that's really great at IT, but then you read in the tabloids, that they're on their third marriage and their kids don't want to talk to them, and the life that they have outside of work isn't what you want, don't take in their information, because in order to get what they have, you have to do what they've done, and what they've done has gotten those results. And so if they're not the results that you want, don't listen to them. So find the right people, but make sure it's not just good tech content, it's also good life content or that you can live by, because you're going to become what you consume. And so make sure you're consuming, but make sure you're consuming the right stuff. And if you don't know what the right stuff is, go find someone a little bit ahead and just ask. They'll give you the articles, they'll help get you connected, but that would be my advice to, keep learning and advancing.
That was really good. That's pretty much what I was going to say. Ditto. Yeah, ABC, always be consuming, always be learning, always be progressing. That 1% every single day is really important. I block aside 2 hours every day to either listen to podcasts or to read, primarily read. And I just read anything and everything I can that either has to do with entrepreneurship, people that I admire, that I want to emulate their life, things about my industry. So that's just something that I always do because it's very important. You never stop learning, you never stop growing, you never stop becoming something more if you want to achieve more. If you're happy where you are, if you're happy with everything that you have and you don't want to achieve anything anymore, that's fine, stay stagnant. But if you want a job, if you want to get better, then strive towards it, move towards it, do that 1% every day. And a big part of that is learning and consuming really good content. In addition to that, I would say make mistakes. Like, don't be afraid of making mistakes, because failure is not game over. It's try again with experience, right? It's try again with experience. Having failed, you will have learned a lesson, or you should evaluate to make sure that you have, and then try again. So failure is not game over. It's try again with experience.
I would say, especially coming in, if you're new to a company, my background has been like networking and systems administration, security, like all things that typically have big dollar contracts behind it, and they usually have a support contract. A lot of people that I've worked with, they almost kind of take it as like a badge of honor, like never having to like call support. I'm a huge fan, of if I'm stuck on a process or like my team's stuck on a project, or if someone even comes to me and they're like, hey, how do I do X, Y, Z? I was like, if I don't know off the top of my head and I can't show them, I was like, why don't you put in a support ticket for that? We pay these companies, hundreds of thousands of dollars, a year to support this product. They're the ones that developed it. We really pay them for this service. Let's dig in and let's have them, kind of answer that question for us. Don't be afraid to kind of, raise your hand and say, I don't know something. Because a lot of times, you go to your boss or your other engineers, and it could be someone who's worked on that same system, for 5-10 years. And they're like, what, I never, a lot of times they'll be broken because no one knew what it was or what to do, because no one wanted to raise their hand, so they didn't know. So, obviously, ask internally first if you have a team. Don't be afraid to, rely on, the vendor support. If you're in a situation, if you're like a programmer or something, it's a little different. You can't really call, Oracle and say, why is, Java not working correctly. You might have to get professional services involved. A lot of companies will rely on that as well. And when you do kind of go down that avenue, make sure to actually work with them. I've seen a lot of situations where someone will reach out to support and they'll just want to give them like an account and have them like, temporary access or come in and like try to do something for them. Really actually sit with the support person and make sure that's a good engagement. Obviously, depending on what industry you're in, it might be a huge issue with compliance anyway if you give them access to your system, but you learn a lot, like what they do, ask questions, kind of, you're like, hey, why did you do that? Why was it broken like this? What can we do better? While you were in there, did you see anything else that we have configured wrong? You learn a lot from those engagements. I've learned a lot in my career, Cisco TAC. I could think of like 3 support people that I still have their name memorized just because I worked with them so much when I was first starting out in my career. So, yeah, it's a good one. And then kind of on the topic, especially if you're new to a company, like I think we kind of mentioned, there was something I was told when I was starting out, if you go too far outside of the box, you'll find out why there was a box. So, kind of keep that in mind. Everybody kind of wants to push the envelope and make a name for themselves and, kind of be recognized for the work they do. If you start somewhere or you're at a new company and you're like, this is completely wrong, this is stupid, why was it like this? There are a lot of weird legacy antiquated systems that things touch and they're connected to, and it might be wrong for the way you learned it or like the textbook way, but it might be some like duct tape process that works, and you correcting it and making it textbook correct could break something else right in the way. So yeah, change approval boards and learn your change request process in whatever company you go to.
So I will limit my answer to my sphere of influence, which is the data center world, right? There's something called the 24/7 exchange. It's a bunch of data center professionals that get together. Some of it's tangential. You get guys like Foley they make generators and do generic maintenance for what we do. I'm a data center guy, facilities, network engineering, that sort of thing. Some people are just straight up real estate. Lawyers will come in because the data center industry is half real estate now. I was taking notes. Amy, this is a pencil. This is not a pen. I've been writing on the desk. somebody mentioned something about the cloud. I just, as a point of clarification, the cloud is not a physical thing, right? It doesn't exist in the ether above this building. It winds up in a data center like mine on a nice spinning disk somewhere. I just thought that would be worth clarifying. Professional memberships, so 24/7 Exchange is one. There's a branch of that called WIMCO, which is Women in Mission Critical Operations, of which I'm a supporter. The AWIS, which is the Association for Women in the Sciences, of Women in the Sciences, I'm also a professional member of. I do not participate very much, but I read all the literature on this. It's very interesting because in my field, I would say for every 50 applications, one is female. It's just a nature of the beast. It has changed from about 100 to 1 to 50 to 1, so it's getting better. But that's, I think, part of the nature of IT in general. I've been privileged to visit other data centers in my many years of tenure. So whether that's for my company or at the time that I'm working for them, or a separate company as a vendor, or a separate company as an auditor, or something along those lines, I've been able to see things that I think are very important that I'm able to implement in my facilities, or things that I would point at and go, there's no way I'm doing that, right? Networking groups are very important. Usually you surround yourself with people that are like-minded to you. So if I have a network engineering friend, I have a teacher friend who teaches CSIT things. I have an aunt that's a professor that works on communication skills and interviewing skills like we're doing here today. Working with those professionals is also very important. We also have, DataBank specifically has something called DataBank University, and it has hundreds and hundreds of training articles that are free to all employees. They go over things like cultural cornerstones, soft skills, interviewing skills. It also goes over things like the DCCA or the CDCP, which are fundamental programs provided by Schneider Electric and Exxon to work on the fundamentals of data center design, implementation, fire, safety, security, those sorts of things. Some of them are barriers to promotion, so we want you to know these fundamentals in order to progress. Some of it is purely just for your own edification. You can use them at your leisure, so it's a benefit of the employment. I will say that failure does lead to learning. In my specific industry, failure can lead to death. So I would compartmentalize that to, if you have a piece of code that breaks and nobody's injured, great. If you walk into my UPS room and start touching stuff, you're probably going to put yourself in mortal danger, right? So just be aware of the box that you're in, and there's a reason that box exists. It's the advantage of going last, that's right. So the box is there to protect you most of the time. It doesn't mean that the box is always right? Because we've made process and procedure changes all the time, especially in the data center world and IT in general. But know that, if there's something that's in your way, maybe you should ask the question first before going like, hey, can I open up this dead front and stick my finger in a 2 megawatt UPS, right?
Yeah, I'll probably go a little bit back toward kind of knowing yourself, I think, with this. Because I think if you're going into this industry to make money, you will probably make money, but you won't necessarily be as maybe happy or content. And I think that goes in line with the learning, right? Like everyone here is smart enough to learn whatever it is that you need to learn for the next page of whatever it is that you're doing within IT. The question is really, are you motivated to actually learn any of that stuff? And if you don't love really what you're doing, it's just going to be a lot harder because it's going to feel like a task. I mean, it's going to feel like high school again, where great, I have to like memorize all of this stuff because if I don't memorize it, I'm not going to pass the test. When in reality, it should be like, I want to learn this stuff. This is like exciting. What can I do with this? Like, how does this tool help me and my skill set to be able to do even more than I could before? And then the other thing that I would say is in line with this is just humility. Just understand what you don't know. You might have to learn something 3 times, and that's totally okay because it's so much better than trying to learn it once, not learning it, and then telling everyone you know it when you don't. So yeah, those would be.
All right, fantastic. I want to expand just a short little bit because I didn't know this going. Oh, she's handing out homework. You guys didn't know you're going to have to write an essay, 300 to 500 words. If I were a tree, which tree would I be? On the point of networking, people mention some of these networking events. I cannot stress that enough. I know Professor Krause and I are a part of a healthcare IT organization that is nonprofit, membership only, but students at JOCO get free membership. We host the events most of the time here at the college, and we see 2 students attend. You get to go for free, and we always feed you. Okay, 2 things college students should love: food and free. Okay, and why I stress this was years ago I had a student come, and he came up to me and I said, well, how's it going? He goes, well, I graduate, in 30 days. And he goes, I still don't have a job. In fact, I haven't even gotten an interview. And he said, I just really want to work in the field of healthcare. And I said, okay, you see that guy standing right over there? He goes, yeah. I said, he's the CIO for a very large tech firm that does healthcare here in town. I said, go over and talk to him. What? Yeah, walk over, introduce yourself, and say, I would like a job, please. The student thought I was really putting him on. He went over. He sold himself. He came back over, his eyes were as big as softballs. And I said, what? And he goes, I have an interview next Monday. He said he pulled out his cell phone, called his admin, and said, schedule this guy to interview me. So when higher level executives come to these events, and guys, feel free to disagree with me here, they get beat up a lot by vendors trying to sell them stuff. They join these organizations so they get access to the purchasing decision makers. Getting to talk to someone like you, passionate about the industry, looking for meaningful employment, is a breath of fresh air to them. So take that advantage, okay? And guess what? If you blow it, go to the next person. You will. You'll blow it a couple times. That's okay. So with that, I want to ask the panel a question. We've talked about some hard skills, which obviously we have to have some of those. Talk to me about the importance of the soft skills. We're seeing a renewed focus on the need for these soft skills, whereas I know 25 years ago when I went into the industry, I swear this guy I worked with, my boss said, that guy over there is really, really, really smart. He can program in 5 different languages. He's one of the most brilliant people we have, but he is a complete and total jerk. And we tolerate that. Okay. We're shifting. So talk about those soft skills too.
Yeah, I think especially in this industry, I think that soft skills actually go even a little bit further than they do in some of the other industries. And that's because tech is so hard to just communicate. Because you have all of these languages, which really are like completely different languages, except you don't have countries that all understand the language. You just have some individuals who understand the language. So going back to kind of what I talked about with the interview process of being able to articulate and just having those verbal communication skills, I think really communication is just something that you can get a huge leg up on in this industry, because I can basically guarantee you, whoever you talk to, whatever company you talk or that you work with, you're eventually going to talk to someone who's going to have no idea what you're talking about. And so if you can give them the complete explanation that at the very least gets them onto like the same page of what you're talking about, that actually goes so much further than you might ever think. So I would say that that's one of the biggest keys of having soft skills in this industry.
Build off a couple people that have already spoken. The words "I don't know" are very important. You can say that to a point. You can't just say "I don't know" to everything and get away with it, right? But if there's something you truly don't know, it's important to say that, or at least ask them to restate the question in a way that maybe it could be phrased differently. Most of the time in my interviews, I will ask a series of ascending questions to figure out how long it takes you to say "I don't know." Either you're not being truthful or you're lying, or something along those lines, which I will snuff out very quickly. Or you will eventually say 2-3 tiers up, I've never heard of that term, I don't know, can you elaborate? This happens a lot with fundamental industry words that are acronyms, right? If I say UPS, STS, PDU, you may not know the term, but when I explain what the term means, you may fundamentally understand exactly what I'm saying. To Bob's point, Corwin's point, the fundamentals of working remote, the bar right now is low to the ground for showing up on time, right? I would say that hybrid working for a lot of people is way more likely at this point, but don't box yourself in, especially at an entry level, to be like, look, I'm not taking a job, I would rather just be unemployed than work in an office, right? Around this area, traffic is low, you can travel very freely here, be willing to work in an office. And like you were saying, the trend is swinging the other way around, right? I've said this before, and I will continue to say it. I can teach you any skill. I can take you raw. I hired someone from this exact program last year. He's been working for me a little bit more than 6 months. Part of the reason I hired him was he was green and moldable, and I had an entry-level position. The other part was I can teach you any skill. I cannot teach you how not to be a jerk, right? You have to be fundamentally able to talk to me like a person and be nice and kind and say I don't know, have some level of humility, and be able to listen. I know that what you're doing right now is fundamentally listening to us, and usually when we're going to go into those little pods, I want him to be doing the least amount of talking. I want to hear your voice. I want to know what you know, right? Be able to listen to that person when they're talking to you and understand the question that they're asking. It's okay to ask them to restate it. It's okay to ask them to rephrase it, but make sure that you fundamentally understand what they're attempting to extract from you, right? Listen to what they're saying.
I think for me, one of the big ones, being able to present kind of ideas and data to non-technical people. A lot of people mention that really gets you really far in your career. You can be a really good, engineer, kind of individual contributor. And some people love that, and that's when they can be happy staying. But really, what kind of helps you move up is when you can kind of bridge those gaps. That's some of the most prominent people in our IT department at the companies I've worked at have been the BI folks. And they tend to usually not be the hardest technical folks, but they can really take data and provide metrics and KPIs that the business folks and the producers, the people really making the money for the company, can relate to, and they'll go to them. They get invited to every meeting. They just love hearing from them. They want to feed them as much information and data and communicate with them as much as they can because they're able to turn around and produce something that's actionable for the company. So a lot of times in IT, depending on what role you're in, you're considered a cost center. Like I touched back on earlier, the products that we use and we go out and purchase, there can be, I've signed $1 million contracts for companies to get new software brought in, VMware, if you ever have to do a contract for one of them or Microsoft. But so being able to really sell that idea and present how you're going to get the return, hey, this, just saying, hey, this is really cool and this is going to help us, isn't gonna sell it. So being able to really put those ideas together, learn PowerPoint. I know a lot of people hate it and it's kind of cheesy sometimes, but I've had a lot of managers and people. I've had directors, VPs, and C-suite that I've had to report stuff to, and really PowerPoint seems to be the language of the C-suite. I've found. Another thing, I always recognize the triple I's. Warren Buffett has a really good one. They asked him what do they look for in Berkshire Hathaway employees. He said intelligence, integrity, and initiative. So really, and he kind of ended that by saying, if you don't have the first two, the third one will really kill you. So really have that intelligence and that integrity. That's a huge one. Accountability is big. Kind of mentioned being able to say I don't know something. That if you're in an interview and you're just kind of winging it, or you just don't want to admit you don't know something, or if you're new, you don't want to admit you don't know something, you're really going to stifle your career, and you're probably not going to get the job if you refuse to say I don't know at any point in the interview, especially starting out.
Okay, so I think you need an attitude of gratitude. Say thank you. Do a follow-up note, like a physical pen and paper. You put a stamp on it, and you mail it off. Besides just the email, have an attitude of gratitude and say thank you. That'll go a long way.
I think when it comes to soft skills, it's super important to understand why we do what we do. A lot of people get into tech and it's I work on computers, I build networks, I write code, I create software, and that's just a means to an end. At the end of the day, we work on computers to serve people. We set up networks to serve people. We write code to serve people and to take care of problems. And so everything that we do is about serving people. And where we serve people, for some places, is the most sensitive areas where there's tons of fear. There's lots of despair. They don't have hope. And so being able to not just say, hey, here's how we can secure your network, or hey, we can write this program that can do this thing, but to bring hope back into someone's life, to bring peace where there was turmoil, that's what takes you from good to great. So you can be good in tech and just be really good at your task, But when you go beyond the task to look at the person you're doing the task for, and you're able to connect with them and actually understand the problem, and then have the skills to be able to mine out the data that you need to serve, you're going to go to the next level. And so you will not advance, in my opinion, past a mid-level position without good soft skills. You have to learn how to talk to people. You have to learn how to listen. You have to learn how to care. And it can be super hard caring when you get someone calling in and they're just railing on you because this issue that they've experienced 3 times before is happening again, and why can't you just fix it? And they just don't understand some of the intricacies, and all you want to do is just yell at them and tell them why, but to be able to back that up and just, hey, I understand, and to show empathy, and let's dig into this, and we're gonna fix it, but this might be a long road. Like, learning how to do that, it will give you sanity, but it will also make you one of the most valuable people in the tech industry. I have a job in the IT realm right now, not because I'm really great at tech, because honestly, most of you are probably smarter than me when it comes to IT, but because I know how to deal with people. And so working on those soft skills is going to open up doors that you would never imagine. Now, you need to be able to back it up with stuff. So even though I could open up doors, I had to learn, but your soft skills are often what open up the doors. It's what connects with people, and it's what really helps us complete the mission, which is making sure that we're serving the people that we're doing the work for.
How could you? You stole my answer. Yeah. I guess, so again, I mean, I graduated college a year and a half ago. I'm certainly early career still, but in my experience, the term like personality hire gets thrown around a lot. Maybe people call me that. I won't disclose that right now. But to me, what that means is a personality hire is typically somebody who has really, really good soft skills. And I think if you notice anybody, you seem that somebody who maybe isn't your manager is constantly like grading you and your abilities, maybe like don't take like their opinions into account very much, because we are here to solve problems at the end of the day, but you don't want to compete with people who are on your team. And I think when people say things like that, it's kind of like, what? So when it comes to soft skills, again, like Tristan was saying, like you can't teach someone how to not be a jerk. So if people are being a jerk, I think it's really important to like bring that up. Bring that up to your manager. Like, you need to, it's so important to, in my opinion, make the culture of your team, of your workplace, somewhere where you want to go. Especially as someone who, I mean, just the general opinion online, I mean, we're all on social media and stuff, is like, don't live to work, or like be like so anti-corporation, like blah, blah, blah. I understand that philosophy has its merits, but no matter where you are, you shouldn't live to work, but you should live to achieve. And it's about seeing your career as a vehicle to bring yourself to personal achievement and to ultimately feel good about yourself. And I think once you get there in your position, in your career, no matter what it is, you start seeing this kind of like positive feedback loop where you like yourself more and you're becoming a better person, and your soft skills kind of like naturally develop. You are less competitive. You are more communicative. You're better at problem solving because you're not so like, any day now people are going to figure out that I don't know what I'm doing. Like, that's not really, like, nobody's really grading you, I think. That was kind of a roundabout way of saying, like, people have soft skills. We just typically get in our own way in showcasing them. And I think once you, like, let that down and just start being yourself in the workplace, I mean, I'm wearing a cardigan and a full face of makeup. Like, be yourself at work and it will only help you. I feel like when you're trying to be someone you're not, your soft skills can never like shine, because really what it is being a communicator, being yourself, getting to know people, connecting with them. So yeah, just be yourself, I think, is the ultimate advice.
Yeah, I absolutely agree there. I am adamant that soft skills are absolutely imperative to your success. They are single-handedly the most important factor to landing a great interview with a firm, right? So the fundamentals are super important when it comes to soft skills. So good communication, attentive listening, and cordial, being cordial with people. Like you had said, if you are very rude and kind of a jerk to people, right, like security guards, that's not a great way to start in any setting, right? Just be kind, be good to people. Say, hey, how's it going? How's your morning? And that will propel you into new places. So being cordial is super, super important to your success. Along with that, a lifelong learner. So while nobody else can teach you these skills on how to be cordial and stuff, you can teach yourself that. If you know that you're cranky in the morning and that you're not a good speaker and you don't like talking to people, learn how to kind of adjust and change that and adapt that. Figure out ways to kind of break outside your shell and become kinder to people, because truly that is the number one most important factor when working anywhere. Be kind to people, be cordial, and the rest will follow.
In summary, soft skills, very, very important. And I loved the point on gratitude. One thing I have in my bag all the time is snacks, phone charger, and a package of thank you notes and a stack of $5 Target gift card, or excuse me, Starbucks gift cards. I buy them $50 at a time. I throw them in my bag, and anytime somebody goes just a little bit above and beyond for me, I take 5 minutes to write out a thank you note, throw a $5 Starbucks gift card, and send it along. You would be amazed the people that you hear from after you do that. I had a help desk person. They spent a lot of extra time fixing an issue for me, and I took the time to write out a thank you note, $5 gift card, drop it in her office mail. The lady called me crying. She said, nobody has ever done this for me. And she goes, I don't even like coffee. She goes, and I said, well, they sell snacks too. It's okay. So, here I gave a gift that, really wasn't all that personal, but it's the fact that you take the time to do that. Now, if you're interviewing and you send a thank you note, I probably wouldn't put a $5 Starbucks gift card in there. That seems a little bit like bribery. But otherwise, like I said, I keep them in my bag. They're in my desk drawer. They're at home. And, I carry stamps with me, too, just because you just never know. And the quicker you can drop that in the mail, the more impactful it's going to be. So never underestimate the value of those little gestures. Mean a whole lot to people, and it could differentiate you. So, okay, with that, I think we're going to wrap this up. So huge thank you to all of our panelists. Let's have a round for our panelists, please. Again, along the lines of gratitude, they were not paid to come here. We just simply put the ask out, and we had 7 people say yes. That's pretty freaking cool. When you get to the level of these individuals, I'm sure they would agree with me, time is your most valuable asset. And there is constantly somebody competing for your time. So again, the fact that they carved out some time with us today really says a lot about how they feel about you and the future ahead. So.